Narration, Henry!
This ends now.
The fall of a fake HOA tyrant. It started with a single parking violationer, so they claimed. My grandfather, a proud Air Force veteran, was accused of parking his truck incorrectly in his garage. A minor infraction, they said, but when their so-called HOA enforcers shoved him to the ground, breaking his arm on the cold concrete, it became personal. I couldn't let it slide. My cousins, all U.S. Army veterans, came home with one mission: justice. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about dismantling a bully who thought she could control our lives with fake rules and hired muscle. Here's how we turned the tables on a neighborhood tyrant. I stood in the driveway of our suburban Texas home, watching as Linda, the self-proclaimed president of our homeowners association, stormed up with her 2 lackeys trailing behind. She pointed at my grandfather Henry's truck, parked neatly in our garage, and declared it a violation because the front bumper extended 2 inches past the door. I'm Tom, 25, living with my grandfather in a neighborhood that used to be quiet until Linda moved in. Henry, 70, is as tough as they come. A retired Air Force mechanic. He keeps our house so pristine you could eat off the driveway. Linda, on the other hand, was a 50-year-old with platinum blonde hair and the personality of a drill sergeant who'd been denied coffee for a month. Her enforcers, Carl and Eddie, called themselves HOA security officers. Carl, a hulking guy, always looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight like he wanted to be anywhere else. Eddie, not the brightest, nodded along to Linda's every word like a bobblehead. The trio's presence spelled trouble from the start. Linda's rules were absurd. Grass couldn't grow taller than 2 inches, meaning you had to mow every other day in spring. Trash cans had to sit exactly 18 inches from the sidewalk. She carried a ruler to measure. Cars couldn't stay in your driveway for more than 6 hours, a rule that baffled everyone. House paint was restricted to 7 shades of beige, each more depressing than the last. Violate any rule, and you'd face a $500 fine. The neighborhood lived in fear, tiptoeing around Linda's whims. Was a $500 fine for parking in your driveway for 7 hours legal? I wasn't sure, but it didn't feel right. That day, Linda's shrill voice cut through the air. The front tire of your truck is touching the public sidewalk, Henry. That's a violation of HOA Code Section 12-3. I stared, dumbfounded by her audacity. Your rules don't apply here, I snapped. You have no right to come into our garage. Henry stepped out, calm but firm. My truck's in my garage. There's nothing wrong with it. Linda's face flushed crimson. Don't argue with me. I'm the HOA president. She turned to Carl, her eyes blazing. Handle this. Carl hesitated, glancing at Henry, a 70-year-old man who wasn't breaking any real law. Sir, could you back the truck up a bit? He asked, almost pleading. Henry's voice hardened. I told you it's parked correctly. Linda's jaw clenched. Carl, I said, handle it. Get him out of here. My legs froze. Was this happening? Over 2 inches of a bumper? Carl paused for a moment, but under Linda's glare and likely the promise of his $200 monthly paycheck shoved Henry hard in the chest. My grandfather stumbled backward, crashing into the garage's concrete wall. The sickening crack of his arm breaking echoed in my ears. Henry collapsed, clutching his arm, his face pale with pain, letting out a quiet whimper I'd never heard from him before. Linda, Carl, and Eddie fled like roaches when the lights came on, not bothering to check if Henry was okay. My hands shook as I dialed 911, barely able to hit the right numbers. As we waited for the paramedics, Henry, ever the protector, whispered through his pain, Tom, don't do anything reckless. At the hospital, the doctor confirmed a broken arm, requiring a 6-week cast. Sitting by his bed, watching machines beep, a cold fury settled in minute explosive, but calculated, like a winter storm building in my bones. That night, Linda sent a text. This is what happens when you don't respect authority. My blood boiled as I read it, staring out the window to see her smirking from across the street, as if she'd won. I called my cousin Mark. Someone hurt Grandpa Henry. I need you here. 3 days later, my cousins arrived from Fort Hood, Mark, Luke, and Ryan, each carrying the weight of years in the Army. Mark, 30, a staff sergeant, had a calm intensity that commanded respect. Luke, 28, a tech specialist, could make computers bend to his will. Ryan, 26, a psychological operations expert, could read people like open books. They weren't violent men, but family came first always. Seeing Henry in a cast, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, their jaws clenched in unison. No words were needed. Their looks said it all. Mark watched the security footage of the assault, his face darkening. "This is personal now," he said, already on the phone gathering intel. Luke hacked into Linda's emails, uncovering her every move. "She's not the president," he announced, eyes wide. "She's been forging signatures." Our plan shifted from revenge to dismantling her entire operation. Linda was just a board member who'd been forging the real president's signature for 8 months. Mark laid out the charges: assault and battery on a senior, a felony in Texas carrying 2 to 20 years, fraud, and impersonating an official. Ryan, with a sly grin, suggested psychological pressure first. Make them turn on each other, then hit them legally when they're weak. Mark nodded. 3 phases: intelligence, psyops, legal execution. Luke dove into Linda's communications, revealing she'd been embezzling HOA funds to pay Carl and Eddie $200 each monthly to play fake cops. Ryan planned to exploit their greed and paranoia. "We'll make them sweat," he said. I felt a surge of confidence, like blood returning to a numb limb. "What do I do?" I asked. Mark's reply was firm. "Stay clean. We handle the dirty work." Luke sent fake HOA emails announcing absurd rules. Residents must walk counterclockwise. Green decorations were banned, and trash cans had to be rotated 45 degrees daily. The neighborhood erupted in chaos. Angry texts flooded Linda's phone. "What are these rules? Are you insane?" She denied sending them, but the emails came from the official HOA account with her forged signature. Her authority began to crumble. Linda hired a private investigator and installed cameras around her house, but we were steps ahead. Ryan sent an anonymous email to Carl. "Linda's planning to blame you for the assault. She's talking to a lawyer. Watch your back." Carl called her, panicked. "Did you talk to a lawyer about me?" Linda, already stressed, snapped, "No." "Well, we might need protection if this gets worse." Carl's voice rose. "Are you throwing me under the bus?" The seeds of distrust took root. Meanwhile, Eddie was unraveling at a local bar, drowning his guilt in beer. "I heard an old man for $200, he confessed to anyone listening. We're not real security, just bullies." Sarah, a neighbor who'd been fined for her yellow house, recorded it all. She'd been documenting Linda's abuses for months, her grandfather's advice to always be prepared ringing true. Sarah knocked on our door the next morning, playing Eddie's confession and another recording of Linda, slightly drunk, admitting to forging signatures and stealing funds. "I signed the president's name on whatever I want. He's been in assisted living for months. Paying those 2 idiots $200 keeps them loyal." Mark whistled. "Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. She's done." That afternoon, Carl showed up at our house, shaking. "I didn't want this to happen. Linda made us think we had real authority." He offered to testify against her, spilling details of her 8-month reign. Forging signatures, stealing from the community fund, and ordering them to escalate when residents resisted. Luke took notes, guiding Carl to admit more than he intended. Eddie, meanwhile, stopped answering Linda's calls, consumed by guilt. Ryan called Eddie from an untraceable number, posing as a lawyer. "This is Attorney Smith. We represent Henry Miller, the veteran you assaulted. Turn yourself in within 24 hours, or face maximum charges." Eddie sobbed, promising to comply. Linda, now alone, grew frantic, banging on Carl's door and leaving Eddie 27 voicemails in an hour. Her empire was collapsing. Sarah brought more news. Linda had tried breaking into Carl's house, screaming threats. That night, I saw her wild eyes from my window, pacing her driveway at midnight. Mark arranged an emergency HOA meeting, authorized by the real president, Mr. Thompson, who'd returned from assisted living to reclaim his role. The community center was packed with angry residents demanding answers about fake rules and missing funds. Linda arrived, disheveled, without Carl or Eddie, who'd lawyered up and were cooperating with police. She tried to take control. "This meeting is unauthorized." Thompson, 82, stood with his walker, voice steady. I'm the president, Linda. I never resigned, and you had no right to sign my name. The room fell silent. Sarah presented Luke's evidence, forged signatures, Eddie's confession, and Linda's recorded admission. Neighbors gasped, recognizing violation notices with fake signatures. Linda's face drained of color. I was acting to maintain standards, she stammered. Thompson countered. That's called fraud and forgery. The crowd erupted, sharing stories of her abuses. $300 fines for wrong fence paint, threats over work trucks, harassment over Christmas lights. Linda backed toward the exit, shouting, "This neighborhood needs strong leadership." But no one listened. She fled, abandoning her car at a mall with $3,000 in cash. Police tracked her to a Tulsa motel, registered as Jane Brown. She was arrested with a duffel bag of cash and shoddy fake IDs. Her mugshot, splashed across local news, showed a defeated woman, far from the tyrant who'd ruled us. At trial, the evidence was airtight. Carl testified about Linda's orders to use force. Eddie broke down, apologizing for hurting Henry. The prosecutor outlined her crimes: 8 months of fraud, $6,000 embezzled, and directing violence against residents. Linda's final meltdown came when she interrupted the judge, screaming, "This neighborhood was garbage before me. That old man deserved it for defying me." She lunged at Henry with a smuggled blade, but Mark blocked her, taking a cut to his arm. Bailiffs subdued her as she ranted, sealing her fate. Judge Wilson sentenced Linda to 25 years for fraud, embezzlement, assault, attempted murder, and contempt, plus $37,000 in restitution. Carl got 3 years, Eddie 2, both with fines and community service. The HOA fund was restored, Thompson repealed Linda's rules, and new oversight prevented future abuses. Our neighborhood threw a block party to celebrate. Henry, arm healed, was the guest of honor, teaching kids bike maintenance in the same garage Linda had targeted. Neighbors shared food and stories, free from fear. Mark's scar became a badge of honor. "Best scar I ever earned," he said, grinning. A year later, our community thrives. Property values are up, thanks to our unity. Linda's house was sold to a young family who host cookouts, their kids playing freely. Henry's back to his old self, and I've learned justice isn't about revenge, it's about truth and accountability. Linda destroyed herself with greed and cruelty. We just shone a light on it. What do you think about this story? Have you ever faced a bully like Linda, or seen injustice in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments. Should violence ever be met with violence? Or is exposing the truth enough? Let's hear your stance.